welcome back to Wellness Wednesday on the Lotus Lounge podcast. I am your host, Uma, and I am so happy to have here with me today our very special guest, Greta Okomo. But before I introduce you to Greta, I want to tell you a little bit about what we are talking about tonight. Tonight, we're diving into a topic that every woman needs to hear. So many of us have been conditioned to shrink, to make ourselves smaller, quieter, more agreeable, all to fit into expectations that were never meant for us. But shrinking dims our spark. It disconnects us from our truth, it steals our joy, and it just is not good for everyone all around. So tonight we're talking about reclaiming your muchness, the fullness, confidence, and authenticity that is your birthright. And I have the perfect guest to explore this with. My guest tonight is Greta Okomo, the founder and CEO of Collaborative Change Consulting, LLC. Greta has over 20 years of experience advancing leadership and diversity and inclusion work for higher education institutions and nonprofits. Through her leadership training and personal development coaching, she helps people create thriving workplaces rooted in trust, respect, and cultural understanding, while empowering individuals to live authentically. Greta believes that when women stop shrinking and reclaim their muchness, they step into their true power. Greta, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Uma, so much for having me. That was an amazing intro. Like, I'm sitting here getting emotional. Thank you so much. That was great. That was emotional, and I feel hyped up. I'm like, oh yeah, who's this person? That's enough. Thank you so much.
It's you. it's you. But it's so true. Like, I love your topic. And for those of you that don't know, I met Greta in person. She was one of the speakers at that conference I spoke at in DC in September, the Fearless Women's Summit. And she was one of the speakers. And her talk motivated me so much because I have definitely been a woman with too much muchness, right? And I was like, I got to have her on my show. So I am so excited to dig into this topic and, just get to understand where you got this idea from and how this is going to flow. So I want to really ask you about the term, right, Greta? Like muchness. What does muchness mean to you? And when did you begin to notice women losing their muchness?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Well, the inspiration for the term muchness actually came from the 2010 version of Alice in Wonderland. And it had Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter and Anne Hathaway. And it was just excellent, version of that film. And there's a part where the Mad Hatter says to Alice, he asked her to slay the Jabberwocky, which is like this like monstrous creature that the queen would set out on the opposing army. And it was just, decimate them because it was this huge monster beast of a creature. And he was like, okay, it's time to slay the Jabberwocky, because Alice, the iterations that she would come to Wonderland, she would slay the Jabberwocky. And she goes, me? Slay a Jabberwocky? Yeah, not me. I wouldn't even know like how to do that. And he said, you're not how like you used to be, or like how you were before. You used to be much more muchier. You lost your muchness. And it made me really think about that. And that was the inspiration, because the fact that there was a version of her that did that and did it kind of easily. So it made me think your muchness is sort of this internal compass that you have. It's almost like this internal kind of like powerhouse or fire. You can call it different things. It's your compass, your intuition, your instincts, whatever you may call it, but it is that source within you, the core self within you, that gives you the courage, the boldness, the clarity, the focus, and it kind of powers your strengths and your gifts and the talents that are already there. it is that version of yourself that focuses on knowing, like knowing, deep knowing, and not doing, right? And so
Yeah.
in the film, Alice, there was it's got to a point where there were so many external influences. And like in Alice, there's so many times where she literally shrunk herself and got big again. And she literally contorted herself many times over, and not just in Wonderland, but her real life as well, was contorting herself into this noble woman that she did not want to be. That she had lost herself. She had lost that muchness within her, that muchness
Wow.
which allowed her to slay the Jabberwocky in her other versions of herself. She lost that piece of her
I
along.
identify so much with that topic because when I think about my muchness, I think all the way back to when I was a teenager. I
Mm-hmm.
just remember being so fearless, as a teenager. And I just remember, like, oh my gosh, I was so confident when it came to guys and relationships. And I was
Yeah.
so sure of myself when it came to my looks and my body. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just so, so strong. And then over the years, life kind of beats you down, whether it's that one guy that really you believed in him and he broke your heart, or that group of friends that you
Mm-hmm.
thought were your friends and then they were making fun of you the whole time. So do
Mm-hmm.
you have like a general range of when you think women start to lose their muchness?
Yeah, yeah. I think you got it. You hit the nail on the head. I think it's around the time that we get into um, women or get into our kind of puberty years, and for girls, it's kind of younger, right? So
Yeah.
for girls, it starts as like 10, and so there. I think that's when it happens because I think about myself, and same. I think about. And I probably not when I was a teenager, but when I was younger and before I was 10, I mean, you couldn't tell me nothing. I mean, you were just like, I was like, what? I'm funny. I'm beautiful. Like you
Right.
said, I was fearless. I'm like, I just posted something about this where I said, I wanted to be a comedian, model, journalist because, I'm funny. I'm so funny, and I used to strut around like George Jefferson because I used to watch reruns of George Jefferson. And I used to do like imitations of Tina Turner. So I was like, I'm hilarious, and
Right.
then I was like a model because I was like, I have a distinctive look, and then journalist because I love to write. And I was like, and nobody could tell me that like there was anything wrong with wanting to be those three things. But somewhere along the way, I realized, when I got older, oh, like you're not supposed to say that out loud, or you're not supposed to be that confident in yourself as a girl, or you're not supposed to have those type of ambitions. Then I realized it did kind of correspond to around your puberty years because you're trying to fit in, there's different
Mm.
groups, you're trying to be liked and other people are trying to be liked, and then it gets weird. And I remember like that shift, and I was like, dang, it's getting weird now. Like I just can't be myself, I gotta
Right.
be this like being to attract people now. And I'm like, oh, I didn't like that. I just like running around and being a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are like the years that it starts for girls. Yeah.
That sounds very on point. Like for what I went through myself, it definitely affects your confidence, your identity. It takes away a lot of your muchness in your soul. And I guess
Mhm.
I want to talk about the ways women are socialized to shrink themselves, right? Because that's not coming from us. Like you said, we're young, we're full of life, we're vibrant, we believe in ourselves. But then somewhere along the line, we're told, we're conditioned to shrink. And where do
Yeah.
you see that pressure come from? Does it come from one source? Does it come from several different sources? What does it do to us when we're told to shrink?
Yeah, it comes from a lot of sources, like many sources. It starts, I think, with your family of origin. It starts there and how they relate to,
Mm,
how, ways of being and how you're supposed to present yourself. And it can be your overall culture that you grew up in. It can be just your region. I talk about, sort of being from the South in the US, and that's a very distinctive way of being, or your country of origin, religion or faith can also shape that as well. Your education. I think education is huge. Being in school and being around other, kids and just how you're educated, that also kind of shapes you. work, when you get in different work environments as well. So it's so many external forces,
Yeah.
and I do, and the more you kind of go through these different sort of pipelines of kind of systems and institutions, the more and more you're like sort of told, and I talk about this in a talk that I do. You're told a lot of times you're too much. You're too much of
Mm-hmm.
something. You talk too much, or you don't talk enough. You're too bold, or you're too reserved. You're too, like, to the point where you're like Alice. Like that's what I was saying. It's like Alice, where you're like, what am I supposed to be? Okay, now I'm supposed to shrink. Okay, good. Okay, now I'm supposed to be bigger. Okay, now I'm, like he's like, what am I supposed to be now, right? So, and then you kind of lose yourself along the way because you've contorted yourself so much. And then you go, who am I now? Where's that girl that used to be like, you can't tell me anything. Like, I
Right.
know I'm the best thing
I know
walking
who
over here, right?
I know
So,
who I am, and I am who I know. We
yeah.
have a follower, a listener, a live listener, Beth. She dropped a comment. She said, "Catholic religion is notorious for this. I was raised in that
Mm,
culture," and I
okay.
agree. I think religion is very much a topic for women that lose their muchness. But also, you pointed to relationships, right? And I
Yeah.
remember there was a guy that broke up with me. A
Mm,
guy broke up with me because he said, "You're too much for me. You
mm-hmm.
do too much, you're too much." And even though I was younger, right? I don't know where this strength came from, but something in me responded to him and said, "It's not that I'm too much for you, it's that you are not enough for me." And
Yes.
I
Go ahead.
remember,
Yes.
yeah, I
Right.
remember that moment just taking my power back. Like, how dare you? How dare
Good.
you put the blame on me for shining my
Mhm.
light when you're not shining enough and now you're in comparison to me and I'm the problem. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's important for women to know is that there is a cost to shrinking. And I
Hmm.
want to ask you
Totally.
that, like, what happens when a woman loses her muchness? Does it show up in her daily life, her relationships, her workplace, or it just shows up within her mental?
Oh, all the way around. It's a holistic thing, right? It shows up in, I think, every aspect of your life, personally, socially, in your relationships, at work. Because what losing your muchness means, and I talk about this again, it's like a lot of times you're not too much, like you were saying. It's usually because you assert your boundaries. You have boundaries, and you live by those boundaries. You have values, core values. You live by those values, right? You just don't say them, you actually do them, you mean them. You also have a deep, like, self belief and self worth that's not, needing external validation. And you usually have some sort of, like, yeah, just confidence about who you are, like the core of who you are. And when you move in that way, you do get resistance. And so when you lose that muchness. It's like it erodes all those things. It erodes your ability to have boundaries, and to live your values, and to really be rooted in self belief and self worth. So it erodes all those things. So I think the goal of being accepted, um, doesn't really happen. You think it's gonna, like, okay, if I do all this and contort myself, they will accept me and they will like me. And usually the opposite happens, right? Because you're
Yeah.
not being authentic, and people pick up on that. They sense some sort of, like, people may call it a fake, or they sense something that is not in alignment with you. You're not in alignment, and so people pick up on that in different ways. And then usually you're not happy. So everything you hope to gain from like losing your muchness and trying to fit in and shrinking and playing small, you don't get it from it, because you become like, the clarity you're seeking is not there. So you lose the clarity, you lose the focus, you lose, the confidence, you lose all the things you're hoping to gain by trying to fit in, because you're not being who you really are, and you're not tapping into the best of who you are. And
Mm.
so it all kinds of starts to erode.
We have another live comment. My dad is a male chauvinist, still a double standard for his sons and daughter. And this is coming from a
Mm-hmm.
viewer that is in her 60s. And isn't
Mm-hmm.
that amazing that there's still power over there? She said, "I think we start to love ourselves too late in life. I didn't become a free spirit until I was in my 50s. So I feel that too about the whole dynamic of relationships, because one of the things I do on my live streams is I coach women in dating and love and relationships. And I
Mm,
notice there's a lot of women desperate for love. And I tell them all the time because they complain, he left me for this girl and she's trash, and she doesn't treat him well, and she doesn't cook for him, and she doesn't do this or do that. And I said, but that's exactly why he wants her, right? Because she's not shrinking herself to fit
right.
into his world. She's doing whatever she wants to do, and he's in love with that. So do you feel like, especially when it comes to men, we're not male bashing, guys. We love our men, we love our fathers and sons and brothers, but there may be some toxicity involved with certain men that make a woman question her muchness, right?
Yeah, yeah. I absolutely think that happens. Again, it goes back to, you know, thinking that you have to sort of like contort yourself to have this guy like you, or whoever you're attracted
Yeah.
to and want to be in a relationship with. But it's the opposite. The you will attract the person that loves who you are, right? Loves your muchness. So be yourself. Like, be yourself to your fullest, because you will, once you're yourself to the fullest, the person that isn't into it is not going to want to be with you anyway, right? Like, they're
Mm,
going to be like, like you're saying, they'll be like, oh, you're too much. And it's like you said, it's not about being too much. It's that you're not, there's some insecurities or whatever else going on in you, right? But you'll find the person that's like, I love it. I love everything about it,
yeah.
So I do think in relationships, again, it's like everything else. Don't shrink, don't play small, don't erode those things about yourself, especially boundaries in relationships. Continue to like have boundaries, live your values. Don't, because sometimes you'll be in a relationship and you'll start to do things where like, that's not really my thing, but, or, I'm not, but you'll start to do it so that they like you more. But then
Right.
you can't maintain that because you're like, I don't like doing that stuff, right? Or
I
that's
don't.
not my thing. And so you can't maintain it. And they're like, you're a different person. You're like, no, I'm just being me now.
Yeah.
So, um,
Now the mask
yeah,
comes off. Wow.
right.
This is all such good information. Welcome in, everyone. We are having our Wellness Wednesday podcast talking to Greta Okomo, CEO of Collaborative Change Consulting. And we're talking about women who are having too much muchness and the world kind of like looking down on them. And it kind of beats us down, right? To the point where we give up our muchness. But I want to know, let's flip the script on this now. For anyone watching, listening, who in their own life right now, they're feeling small, they're feeling unseen. The muchness, the world has taken the muchness out of them.
Mm.
And maybe she's listening and she's identifying with what we're talking about. What's the very, very first step this listener, viewer, watcher can do to begin to reclaim her muchness? Do you have advice for her?
Yeah, I would say, well, I almost feel like it's like a two-parter, but I guess the first is remember.
Mm,
Kind of tap back into when was the last time you felt, like fearless, confident, like you had a sense of like being rooted and knowing, like, I know what my gifts are, I know what my talents are, at least, or at the very least, I know what brings me joy. I know what I
mm,
love to do. I know, when I feel good about something, when something feels right, when something feels in alignment. So it's almost like remembering, and you could, journal it or something, like really, have reflection time to really think about when is the last time I felt um, like I was operating in my gifts, like I was operating in my values. And, I was really, um, you know, feeling very like having clarity about who I am. And it may have to go back to your childhood. I mean, it may have to go back that far. So I would say take time to reflect and remember that. And I would say in conjunction with that, practice self-compassion at the same time.
mm,
Self-compassion, give yourself grace, because at this point, if you're feeling that way, you've along the way, you've made a lot of concessions to please other people, right? And
mm,
you've probably, went back on certain values and boundaries and, and self-belief and self-worth to be accepted, to please others. So I would say practice grace for yourself and self-compassion and start talking to yourself. That's one number one thing you can do. Start to talk it up to yourself in loving, caring ways. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend who just went through something really difficult in life. If you have like children or younger people that are in your life and they were going through something difficult in life, how would you talk to them? How would you encourage them? How would you like nourish them and pour back into them? Do that for yourself. Give yourself grace. Say to yourself, I did the best I could with what I knew and what I was, and what I was operating with at that time.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think your advice is spot on. I always like to use that word grace. I feel in life people don't give themselves enough grace. And that's such a good advice you gave everybody is you're doing the best you can, guys. You really are. And I'm so sorry there are crappy people in the world or institutions or, platforms that make you feel less than. And Greta and I are here to tell you, you are just absolutely stunning the way you are and to reclaim your muchness. Now, you've been helping leaders in over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Create cultures rooted in trust and authenticity. And you must have a lot of knowledge and experience in this area, no doubt. But what does a woman reclaiming her muchness, what does that look like? And how does she impact the environment she leads or influences? Does she, or is it just kind of like a quiet power within herself?
Yes, it's all of the above. Yes, it does. It is a quiet power, and a lot of times too. And sometimes I use the word confidence, but I also know it's a very kind of subjective term as well, because usually the most confident people are not the most like talkative or boisterous. A lot of times the people who are the most confident are people who you're just like, ooh, like they walk into the room, they don't say a word, and you're like, all right, okay.
It's their whole power.
Like, I'm already feeling it. Okay. And so, yes, I think reclaiming your muchness looks like it does. It affects, like I said, it's a holistic thing. It affects everything in your life. And so if you're in a leadership role, if you're rooted in who you are, if you're rooted in your like core self and being authentic, it is a ripple effect, and anybody who kind of operates from their authentic self, it is a ripple effect because people who are authentic have a level of self-awareness, right? And self-awareness is not just understanding yourself and your behaviors and your motivations, but also how you interact with others, right? And how you are kind of impacts others. You have an awareness of that, right? And because of that, there is an empathy and compassion and kindness that you can have towards people. And also, it allows you to create this like sort of environment of psychological safety in any space or an environment that you are in. And that makes for a really strong team. If you're in a like workplace setting or wherever you are, it makes people be able to be themselves as well and operate in their gifts and operate in their strengths because you are communicating that to each other. All right. And also makes you trust that person because you know that everything lines up. It's an alignment of, kind of who they say they are is what you see them doing every day. If they say I move with integrity and transparency and with, empathy, and you see them doing that every single day. If it's an organization, they're running an organization that they say those are our values and that's how they run that organization, you trust them. Yeah. Right. And there's a certain level of respect that you have for them because you're like, hey, whatever may happen, there will be conflict and there will be challenges, but you trust that that person is going to do the best for everyone around them. And that makes for an amazing team. And usually, when I do like webinars and I work with teams, I use this example that they did studies of nursing teams. And they found the nursing teams that reported the most mistakes actually performed the best. And they were kind of puzzled by that. And they found that's because they felt psychologically safe, like to say, hey, this is not working. These mistakes are happening, or these processes aren't working, or this is inefficient. So they go back and they fix it, as opposed to being too afraid to say anything. So that's why they were the highest performing teams. So I think when we're rooted in that authenticity, it's like I said, it's a ripple effect, and it improves whatever situation that you are in.
Wow. Talking to Greta today makes me want to really shine my muchness because we all know Uma got a lot of muchness. Greta, I want to ask you on a personal note. This is a great topic that you have, and I think you're changing the lives of many women that are listening. But for you personally, do you have a personal practice or a mantra that helps you stay in your? I have one. I'm going to tell you afterwards. But what's one practice or mantra that helps you stay in your muchness, even on days when life gets heavy?
I don't know if I have a mantra per se, but I think I kind of utilized it, the advice that I gave, where I just, I journal and I remember, like, I remember that one, I remember that and know that, not every day is going to be an amazing day. And I also say to myself, I guess I do say to myself, like, you are doing the best you can. And what you're doing is like more than good enough. Right.
Yeah.
And that's usually what I say to myself. You're doing the best you can, and what you're doing is more than good enough. And I also say to myself, kind of switch it and say, if I had a friend that was going through this, how would I talk to that friend? And because I still have to do that for myself too, because I'm very like critical of myself. So I guess the advice I gave is what I do for myself. But I usually in my head will say, you are doing the very best you can, and your best is more than good enough.
I love it. I love it. Do you guys want to know what my mantra is? My my mantra is I'm gonna do it anyways, because so many times in my life I've been told no, you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, you couldn't, and I'm gonna do it anyways. I don't, thank you for your advice. Yes, I'm paying you for your advice, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And it's just a way to live. Oh my gosh,
you know what's going to work for you.
I know what's gonna work, and sometimes, ladies, you gotta trust what you know, even though you can be surrounded by amazing, brilliant people, but you still are brilliant. You gotta know what you know. So this was wonderful, Greta. I want to thank you so much. This conversation was powerful, energizing, and affirming. And I want to thank you for reminding us that shrinking may feel safe, but it's not who we're meant to be. Reclaiming our muchness is reclaiming our voice. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but for those of you that are listening in, we have a free online summit. Greta's one of the speakers at this summit, and it is going to be December 21st on the winter solstice, December 21st, 2025. Greta will be speaking more about muchness, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about your workshop, Greta?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to sort of do a variation of muchness, but I'm staying in sort of the line of focusing on film characters from like fantasy films. Because I don't know, I think that's my thing.
Yeah, it's so good too.
I think they allow for good analogies. So I'm going to focus more on self-belief, from self-doubt to self-belief, and kind of tapping into the power within. So similar to muchness, sort of from the standpoint of some characters who, again, had to like go through a journey, but they actually had it within themselves to do whatever they needed to do. So I'm going to talk about the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy. If you've seen The Last Dragon, it's kind of a movie from the 80s, little, quirky film, but great film. Willow and Sin from, or Chihiro from Spirited Away. So I'm going to use those characters to talk about how they already had within them what they needed to be able to conquer whatever situation they were in, and relate that to our everyday lives.
That is going to be so exciting. So Definitely click the links. We have the links included wherever you guys are watching this or listening to this. Click the links for the Shape Her Summit on Sunday, December 21st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is absolutely free. And Greta and myself are going to be joining 4 other amazing speakers to give you guys a great day to remember your muchness. Now, Greta, I do know that a little bird told me this little bird always be telling me about free stuff. You have something free for our listeners and our viewers, right? What is this that you have for everyone?
Yeah, so I do have a free sample of a couple of the exercises I do when I do the Reclaiming Your Muchness webinar and talk. So I have like a self-reflection guide that has a couple of exercises completely for free. And I guess we'll figure out how I can get it to you. But if you're interested, please contact me. And I'm putting my contact information to Uma.
Yes.
So there's different ways that you can get in contact with me, email or my website. Or I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram are the 2 social media sites that I'm mostly on.
Yeah, that would be great. If you give me your links, I'm going to drop it within the show notes when I post this, and then people can follow. I hope that you guys follow her. She's absolutely amazing, and we're so glad to have her. Thank you so much, Greta. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. This was great. You are amazing and great. You're a rock star. You're on it. I love this so much, and I'm so excited about the summit.
Thank you, Greta. I appreciate you. All right, guys, this was amazing. Please make sure to follow Greta, follow her work, support her mission of helping women lead authentically. And, if you want to go deeper on your own healing and empowerment journey, I invite you to join my spiritual community, the Lotus Circle, where conversations like this continue throughout the month. All right? Thank you for tuning into Wellness Wednesday. May you step boldly into your muchness, and may peace, love, and light guide your path today and every day. Thanks, guys.